Hello and very welcome to Euromonitor International's Fashion Friday podcast series discussing global trends in fashion, luxury, apparel, and footwear. My name is Lastaret Kepichute and I'm in communications department here at Euromonitor. And joining me today, Marina Evstifeeva, who researched the beauty and fashion industries at Vilnius, Lithuania office. Interesting times, as I'm actually Lithuanian, but I and Marina never met before in person because for the last 6 years I've been working in Singapore. I am a big fan of sustainability, willing to do my best to protect Mother Nature, and of course, I love fashion as well as dressing up nicely. Here in Asia, I can see some growth for circular fashion, but wondering what the trends are in Eastern Europe. Hi, Marina. How are you today?
Hello, Best. I'm doing great, and it's my pleasure to be here.
Oh, that's fantastic. Why are we talking about circular fashion today? And what do we mean by circular fashion?
A call for the transition towards circular fashion is becoming louder across many countries, yet there is still a long way to go. Well, to start with, let's define the concept of circularity. Circularity is actually embedded in sustainability. With regard to the fashion industry, circularity defines a supply chain where the byproducts of production wouldn't be wasted but would be brought back into the cycle for further use. So, this way, fewer resources would be needed and less waste would be produced.
Oh, that's so clear, because I know like a few years ago when I learned about and everybody started speak about circular economy, circular fashion. It was like, okay, what does it mean? So it's so clear the way you explain. And my question: what does it take to create a circular fashion industry?
Well, of course, it takes much more than probably some countries and the governments realize today and ready to commit. It will take first fashion manufacturers to entirely rethink their product designs, to make apparel and fashion accessories combinable by their parts, and to make all materials either recoverable or biodegradable. Furthermore, it will take governments, of course, to incentivize the fashion industry and to scale up recycling capacities. And finally, it takes consumers. Consumers will need to change their perceptions towards upcycled and recycled garments and establish the habit of waste collection for recycling. So, as you can see, the circular model of fashion requires considerable effort on behalf of all stakeholders involved, on behalf of businesses, consumers, state, and the society at large.
So well said. When I grew up in Lithuania, for us, like secondhand things, were kind of a shame or like only um, taken only by people who are poor. So while nowadays, like this kind of a mindset changing, right? So as we focus on Eastern Europe today, are we seeing any shifts in consumers' perceptions in this region towards a more eco-friendly fashion?
Actually, yes. Environmental awareness is on the rise everywhere, and Eastern Europe is not an exception. We are seeing the surge of climate change activism that has clearly impacted consumers' behaviors. For example, according to our lifestyle survey in the 2021, in the most significant Eastern European economies such as Poland and Russia, over half of respondents report to take actions to reduce plastic use. 70% of respondents in Poland claim to recycle items. At the same time, in Russia, the percentage of respondents who claim to recycle is much lower, it's around 40%. It can be attributed to inadequate recycling capacities that are still present in the country. However, when it comes to actual purchase decisions, when buying apparel, footwear, consumers have yet to prioritize their sustainability considerations. Based on the results of the same lifestyle survey, it's clear that consumers prioritize different product features, but in the first place, comfort, value for money, durability, and fit. And these ones come way ahead of eco friendly and sustainable features. And it's true across all European countries, both Eastern and Western Europe. If we zoom again in the biggest Eastern European markets, such as Russia and Poland, there are only around 11% of respondents who mention the feature sustainably produced among the factors of their purchase decisions.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting trend, you know. So I'm just wondering, what's the difference would be, you know, let's say between Eastern Europe and Western Europe. How does it compare to other countries?
Well, uh, the difference is considerable, but still, as I said, the priority for sustainability is yet to develop. But in Germany, for example, 21% of consumers reported to pay attention to sustainably produced labels, among other labels, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So, Eastern European consumers, on average, haven't yet embraced the concept of sustainability, and they have to learn more about circularity in particular.
Okay, so does it mean that the majority of consumers in Eastern European countries are not ready to participate in the circle fashion economy?
Well, it's a complicated question, of course, but not the majority is not ready. Yes, that's true. But we also shouldn't disregard the growing share of consumers who are willing to factor sustainability in their purchase decisions. This share of consumers is actively growing. In Poland, it almost doubled since 2016. In Russia, it increased 1.5 times. And in addition, many circular practices have been around in Eastern Europe. And as you mentioned in Lithuania, yes, circular practice, that popular one is second-hand shopping, even though it has wrong perception, maybe outdated perception, but it's still very popular.
Mm-hmm. Great to hear is that there is some improvement. So, talking about circular practices, do you observe a growing demand for pre-owned apparel and footwear in Eastern Europe?
Well, yes, for sure. In some Eastern European countries, second-hand apparel and footwear sales may account for as much as 30% of total market size. The challenge here, as I said, lies in changing consumers' perceptions of second-hand shopping. For example, in such countries as Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, shopping second-hand is more common among low-income consumers, and it's not considered trendy yet. The idea of shopping for vintage, old style looks is hardly established in the minds of mass consumers. It can be explained, of course, with the deficit of local vintage garments due to Soviet legacy. And at the same time, if we are looking at the high end vintage, it's still niche. Yes, it's better known because it's sourced by long standing luxury brands, but it's not affordable on a mass scale. Um, in contrast, a good example is the Baltic region, uh, where inexpensive second-hand shops have successfully repositioned themselves as vintage. Artfully selected vintage looks are very trendy, especially among the young population. This is where the second-hand fashion is destined to go, and the revival of mass interest to vintage fashion is going to take this direction, and it will reach the rest of the markets in the next decade.
Oh wow, so promising. So next time when I'll be going to visit my home country Lithuania, it seems that I'll just go directly to the vintage shopping experience.
Yes, and it will be very interesting.
Yeah. So let's proceed from consumer preferences and look at the industry performance of apparel and footwear in Eastern Europe. How are fashion players coping here?
Well, to start with, of course, this 2020 was a challenging year for apparel and footwear industry. Many fashion brands switched to survival mode and put on hold their sustainable product launches. But already in 2021, we observe a recovery, which is mainly driven by expanding omni-channel of international fast fashion retailers. Yet, after such a sharp value decline at the start of the pandemic, the industry is set for a long recovery. The, in 2021, the market in Eastern Europe will not recuperate even half of its lost value due to the pandemic. And among the factors impeding the faster recovery, there are established habits of working from home and new vaccination regulation that limit customers' flow and tourist inflow. Yet we see a few market leaders who demonstrate dynamic growth despite the challenging market environment. For instance, a Polish clothing company, LPPSA, who is actively expanding its omni-channel presence both at the home market and in the Balkan region, as well as in Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. Other top performers in 2021 include retailers Pepcor Holding, Gloria Jeans, Fast Retailing, who owns Uniqlo brand. These retailers attract price-sensitive consumers primarily with its good value for money.
And so interesting. And which of these fashion players are at the forefront of circular initiatives in Eastern Europe?
Most of the international players have sustainability strategies, and most of them have partially introduced circular initiatives. For example, that Polish company LPP offers limited editions of apparel which is made of recycled materials, and they are not alone there. Uniqlo, H&M, and Nike collect used garments and shoes for further recycling, and there are many other examples of global brands, but they all, of course, introduce these circular initiatives in response to growing environmental concerns that are coming from developed markets. If we take a glance at the local level, there upcycling is gradually finding its niche. In every country of Eastern and Central Europe, you can find at least a dozen of local designers who make new clothing out of used fabrics. They sell not only casual upcycled apparel, but also upcycled leather products and even wedding dresses.
That's interesting. So, in you as an expert, do you believe that such niche local brands are capable of creating an impact in such a globalized industry as apparel?
Well, clearly, their today's impact is still very limited. Such brands struggle to compete with with fast fashion, yes, with fashion brands who has lower production costs. The biggest consumer markets of Eastern Europe are especially price sensitive. So, in the medium term, consumers there will continue to look for bargains and prioritize value for money rather than any ethical and environmental considerations. However, those locally positioned brands and designers actively educate consumers. Yes, they're active online and social media, and they help to increase overall eco awareness. Moreover, local brands cater to the growing cohort of consumers who are looking for unique designs, who want to stand out from mainstream fashion. And this is going to create a bigger impact on overall consumption patterns in apparel and footwear.
Okay, noted. So, to finalize, is Eastern Europe ready for the transition to circular fashion?
I can only say that Eastern Europe has made its first step towards the circular fashion economy. Within the next decade, Eastern European markets are destined to get oversaturated with fashion brands. So the consumer's call for circular fashion will become even more powerful and it will be impossible to neglect.
That was a good end. So well, thank you for joining us today, Marina. Really very lovely to have you here. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and insights. And remember to look out for Euromonitor's Fashion Friday podcast and find all our multimedia, including podcast, videos, and articles at euromonitor.com/insights. Thanks for joining us today.